dive straight into our next session. Mr. Nilesh Patel will be taking the stage in talking about how and what we can learn from the edtech space. He is the Chief Executive Officer at LeadSquared.
So the theme of the event is EdTech. So I want to talk about what can we learn from EdTech companies. So LeadSquared happens to be a product which basically helps in businesses and organizations in driving conversion from inquiry capture till sales conversion, right? So we happen to have a lot of customers in cross-section of education, which includes edtech companies like Byju's, Vedantu, and so on and so forth, and colleges and universities and offline institute and companies who help people place students outside. So all of the type of businesses and organizations are using LeadSquared. So because the event is on edtech, I thought I'd like to share what we have seen and observed in edtech, what the larger education ecosystem can learn from edtech, possibly, and I'm sure some of you are already doing many advanced things in your own institutes and on your colleges, but these I thought could be very relevant, and wanted to share some of that with you all. So I just want to make sure it is flipping. Can you see the second slide? And that's Byju's? Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, so Byju's became our customer about in 2014 timeframe with a very small use case, and then they kind of grew on from there. And at that time, if you 5 or 7 years ago, if you would explain somebody that people can learn from tab or mobile, it was not something which was easy to digest, and people would not sort of accept it. But the fact that today it has changed, it's such a large business today and growing at a very high speed, tells us that the market was ready, and maybe there was somebody who was needed to kind of take that whole concept to the student, and the whole brilliant marketing and the whole sales tech which they kind of deployed enabled them to sort of do that. Again, the whole idea of Vedantu, and I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that name. It's again a very fast-growing company out of Bangalore, and happen to use LeadSquared as well. And the model there is that every student needs a different way to learn, and that's how they are trying to pair up a student with a teacher in the more tech-friendly way, so that the student can learn from the right tutor with which they are able to tally up very well, right? So that's again an interesting innovation which these guys have driven, and it won't be easy for any of us to believe this 15, 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago, but using technology, and they've been able to grow this whole thing very fast. And then there are certain businesses which are focused on a test prep kind of a model. So Crackverbal is one of the top 10 tech companies identified in that segment, and ability to handle scale is something they sort of had a problem with, and that's again, they use technology in a way to solve that the problem which they face there. So that's again an example. So I'll quickly dive into what we can directly learn from EdTech, and I have a few points which I've kind of noted down, and I'll kind of talk about that. The first and most important is the new breed of entrepreneurs. Are basically very impatient lot, and when there's a market opportunity available or seen and observed, they're impatient to succeed, and in their desire to run at a fast speed, the whole ecosystem changes significantly. So the fact that the ambition is driving the impatience is the first part in the new age edtech companies, which I have personally observed and seen and worked, had a privilege to work with. So that's number one. The other aspect is ambition is driven by the market opportunity which is presented, right? So there is a market which is underserved maybe, and that's the reason why people are ambitious about to go and grab that market share, right? And so that's the ambition, which is looking at the market size. And the third part, which basically sort of helps them, is that the availability of capital. So there are venture capitalists and private equity groups and so on and so forth who are backing this whole thinking and the whole disruption which is going on. And that's one thing which is one thing which I've seen and learned from the edtech world at large, right? And Byju's is one great example, and we had a privilege to kind of work with them. Second is the data to drive decisions, right? So I think when you're operating at scale, it is very hard to look at every individual record. You need to kind of aggregate things and make sense of that. So I'll give a couple examples in some of our customers set. So there is a whole concept of lead scoring, the basically ability to look at every student and what they are doing with your respective assets. Could be your application, could be your website, could be your communication to them. And then each of that is given a certain score so that you know which students are more likely to be interested or have a question for your college or have a question for your program, for example, right? And so in case of large volume, right, identifying, let's say if you have 20 million records, out of 20 million records, you have, let's say, 400, 500 salespeople or 500 counselors, let's say, right? So all of them practically cannot, reach out to all these 20 million people, right? It's impossible. So how do we find a smaller set of people to basically go and talk to them? And that's one problem which is using the data which is available. There is an ability to sort of focus on the right set and go after that. So that's one. Second is another interesting example, right? And this is really not something which I have seen even financial services companies who are really investing a lot in tech actually do this. But I see one of our customers who has done this beautifully. And the fact is, so let's say if I have just imagine that I have a capacity of 200 people who can, who needs to be given X number of inquiries or leads to go after, after that, right? Now, I need to make sure that there is only so much coming into my incoming leads that it doesn't overwhelm these 200 people. Meaning, so what they did using our platform and some of the other analytics and tools deployed, so they would, as soon as the number of lead counts went down, they would start spending more money on TV advertisements. And only so much that the lead volume goes to a certain level and not beyond that. Otherwise, the new leads which will come in would not be handled properly, right? So it's classically what you see in, wherein we switch on the air conditioner and put a temperature, right? It's kind of automated mode, right? It'll go up to 25 and then stick there, and then, once it drops below 24, let's say we'll set at that, then it'll again start, right? So the really controlled environment, and it optimizes the spend money, the money you spend on the advertisement. At the same time, you're able to fully use the bandwidth you have from a sales standpoint. So again, very interesting, example and application of technology and data. Then third is third element I've seen and observed is that when we are presenting our product, when we are presenting our program, when we're presenting our course to prospective students, right? What ends up happening is there is a bond, or there is a connection which is getting built with the student, right? And that connection is being built by the rep, the person, the counselor, the salesperson, whatever the case may be, and whatever is called in respective organization, is what they're spending and emotionally connecting with the student. And the fact that if you are speaking more, if you are able to converse more with a student, there is a more connection going on with you, plus there is a mind share which is getting into the head of the student. At the same time, the more time you spend with the student, the less they're spending with your competition. So, there are companies I've seen and observed are basically, counting number of minutes or number of hours somebody is speaking and talking to students, so that's basically, if I've spent an hour, 60 minutes in a day speaking to various students, how many people I have created a strong mind share with. Very, very interesting and very, very beautiful way to look at because most of the time our focus is in enrollment or the outcome of it. But really the steps which goes into creating an outcome are equally important, and if we kind of go into that little bit detail, we'll see that it's easier to achieve the outcome if we just follow the simple, small, data-driven steps. And that's, again, another very simple strategy just to look at that and see what we can gain with that. Again, interesting. Then the third is the whole student experience, right? I mean, all these edtech companies I've seen are very, very focused on delivering high-quality student experience, meaning they're interested to give, offer what is needed to a student at a given moment, so that their experience is very high quality. and very, very connected experience they are offering. So in case of some of these app companies like Byju's or maybe others, right, what I've seen and observed is that they're willing to go to the home of a student to offer them a personalized experience of the product before they are able to make a purchase. Now, I'm sure some of these learnings may not be as applicable in classic education scenario, but the fact that they are very they are so focused on giving the experience so that the parent or the student is going to make a decision on their product, and they're very driven by that fact, giving the high quality experience. That's number one. Second is the whole concept of, and I think this is very familiar to the classic education. I think maybe some of the edtech companies should learn from the institutes on this aspect as well. But the fact that a lot of these edtech companies are operating remote, right? They do not have student in front of them. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create this whole idea of student success. So let's say if you've bought a certain K-12 product from me, what am I doing with your, as you basically are using my product, where are you getting stuck? So I have this analytics going in the background, looking at how much you're studying, what your grades are, how well you're doing in the test, etc. And so the whole idea of student counseling or student success after they have bought. So meaning I'm going to be hand-holding you throughout your duration of your program is an emerging theme which is happening, and I'm not seeing this only in the education world, but also in the software world and some other areas. In banking also, I had a similar conversation with one CTO a few weeks ago. So the whole idea that there is a virtual advisor or somebody who's sort of making sure that they are in touch with you, they're responsible for making your goals, achieving your goals, and so that's again another aspect of student experience which is being deployed by some of these edtech firms. And finally, the whole idea of do it yourself, right? So meaning the student wants to be in control of the experience also. So what can they do on their own? Could be a self-paced aspect of the learning, could be signing the application on their own ways, the student portal kind of a concept, right? So that gives the control to the student. So that's again drives the experience at the front end, because some of these experiences are being driven by other apps which they are using in the regular life, and so they are they're asking the same experience on getting the control on their side, and that's the again element of the student experience. The third is the fourth is the whole idea of technology. Now, all of this which I mentioned has tech elements, but some of the other things which are being happening in the ecosystem where technology adoption is basically going to very, very, to the edge, I would say. So for example, let's say if I'm selling a program to a student, right? And I figure that the parent or the student at that point is not able to afford the program, right? Then what can I do if I have to, somehow not lose a sale, right? Meaning I have to sort of, convert that student as a customer. I would basically be trying to find saying if there is a way to, is there a lending company, is there a bank who can offer a loan to the student, right? So what has happened in some of these tech companies is that they are basically able to process the loan at the moment when they are meeting the parents. So the fact that it is happening right then and there is allowing them to make a decision that quickly. So that's happening on the edge. And the other aspect is the whole transparency which technology brings in. So for example, if I'm shipping a product to you at home, where the product is right now, is it in the warehouse, is it at the package, is shipped already, was it reached or not? So the technology is bringing the full transparency from point of capture to the delivery of the product, and that's again another thing which is happening. And finally, the whole idea of enabling the frontline people who are talking to our students, who are talking to the parents, I think enabling them with technology is again an important theme and which I've seen in edtech firms. So first is the ease of adoption. Whatever we are giving them, they should be able to easily adopt it. B, whatever is available to them makes their lives easy. So if I'm a counselor, what is the software I'm using? What process I'm following? How is that helping me do my job better? Is it making me more productive, right? So I think some of that is happening. And most importantly, this is again, and this is true for probably for all functions, I would say, is the whole idea of training, right? Meaning if I have a counselor who is coming on the job, what information I should be giving the counselor before they start their job. So simple program, a week or 2 weeks of training on how to position the college, how to answer questions about certain type, and making them ready gives you, because today the student is not going to be happy with saying I will get back to you. And most student would like to find the answer right then and there. That's how the technology has evolved. And so our people who are working and talking to customers and students should be basically equipped with all the knowledge which is needed to kind of move forward the discussion with the students. So I think these are some of the points, and I'll quickly talk about some of the things which are there in our product which helps the counselors do well. So it's basically giving them information in terms of how the inquiries are progressing, what's the score of every inquiry, the lead score of it. They can see if anybody is opening the emails they are sending to them, if the inquiries are coming and coming to a website, and all the details out there which are more likely or interested leads or the inquiries we should follow up with. There's a whole concept of scoring which is based on the activity profile of a lead, and so on and so forth. Just the whole dashboard for the counselors and the admissions team. And creating the automated communication. So for example, if a student has inquired for program A, can we send them information related to program A automatically, and then let the counselors focus on the students who are showing interest in the program, clicking the URLs we're sending to them, coming to our website, and giving the information to them about what's the context of the discussion, so that they're more equipped in kind of talking to the students, and finally giving them a quick view to act and quickly reach out to your students at the moment immediately, right? So I think that's pretty much it. So thank you so much for being a patient audience here.